everyone.
Hi.
Hello, it's good to see you guys all again. If you don't remember, I'm Kayla. I'm with St. Francis. I'm here once a month and I do the Veteran Cafe for you guys. And this month we are going to be talking about September 11th and the remembrance of that. I know that was the topic we kind of chose last month, and we wanted to focus a little more on that just because I'm not going to be here on 9/11. So we were going to take some time. What I would like to do is start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if I have anyone who would like to start off with that. Take it away, my friend.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
If a generation is 20 years long, September 11th, 2001 was a generation ago. None of my generation will ever forget 9/11. Some of my generation will never forgive 9/11. As a nation, we take great pride in the tens of thousands of acts of bravery, of valor, and national unity we witnessed on September 11th, 2001, and in the days that followed. And properly so. But we rarely speak of the enemy and what 9/11 taught us about the nature of a determined enemy. I know that on 9/11, some of my generation, we learned a lesson that we could have learned and should have learned from my father's generation in World War II, my grandfather's generation in World War I. We know through experience that very few people of any generation will care to hear or care to learn in times of peace what their fathers learned in times of war. But I will offer this. The lesson my generation could have learned from my father's generation and from my grandfather's generation is this. You have enemies. Every nation in history has had enemies. It is likely that trend will continue. You may not know your enemy, and the only sure way to discover your enemy is by their deeds. You are no more than a symbol to your enemies, a citizen of the United States. You have no value to your enemies as an individual. None. Your enemy does not see you as a fellow human or an individual with hopes and dreams and family and friends. You're only seen by your enemy as an enemy.
"9/11 became a very gorgeous sunny day with not a cloud in the sky, and it was quite a beautiful September day. And I recall driving down the West Side Highway, the stark difference between how blue the sky was and the plume of smoke and fire coming out of the Trade Center. You start to think, this wasn't an accident. There's no way this could have been an accident with no clouds in the sky and being so beautiful and the Trade Center sitting there so crystal clear. So I definitely remember the juxtaposition of the flame and the cloud versus the bright blue skies on a beautiful morning. I'm what's called a senior inspector with the U.S. Marshal Service, currently acting as an instructor with our training division, and further, I'm on loan to FLETC as a detailed instructor to tactics. Back September 11, 2001, I was a new member of the U.S. Marshals Warrant Squad. So I recall being at breakfast in Harlem at a place called Floridita, eating a lovely Spanish breakfast, and that's the time when the TV in the restaurant, which had the sound off, showed a plane that crashed into the Trade Center. At the time, all of us thought it was pretty much just like some Cessna, some small plane or whatever. But then the TV showed a second plane slam into it, so we all realized this was something insane going on. Cell phones were pretty non-existent back then, for the government anyway. But 2 or 3 of us had cell phones and beepers. So those cell phones were going off, and they were calling the office, and the word was get downtown ASAP. So I remember distinctly, no one talked, no one said anything. We just threw money on top of the table and ran for our cars and proceeded to race down what's called the West Side Highway in Manhattan. And going as fast as we possibly could down through rush hour traffic. At some point, the West Side Highway kind of curves to the left, and you get a commanding view of downtown Manhattan. And that was the first time I clearly saw the Trade Center, which I'd always seen and always takes your breath away, but this time it had giant fireballs like shooting out of it, and a lot of black smoke. So at that point, we realized something was seriously wrong, like World War III wrong. We turned around and came outside, and right away saw a bunch of our colleagues, other task force officers, and they said, the tower has collapsed. What do you mean it collapsed? They said, the tower collapsed. What? And I just remember thinking, like, what do you mean collapsed? I would think if something would have happened, a chunk of the building would have fallen off or would have cracked. We couldn't conceptualize that it would collapse. So we heard the tower collapsed, and we actually missed the sound of it all because we were inside 26 Fed. But as we proceeded on to our other office, the federal courthouse, down at 500 Pearl Street, that's when we started to see a stream of, I call them like the white zombies. They were just like people that were obviously within a block or so of the debris field. When the tower collapsed, the debris just toppled over and caked everyone who's in that path with this white powder. And they started to just wander up the streets away from the Trade Center, just heading north.
Nobody cared what your politics were, what agency you were with, whether you were Hispanic or white or black, or none of that mattered. We came together on the second half of 9/11. I say 9/12. We were one. We functioned together. There was a sense of pride in being Americans, realizing that we had a lot more in common than we have differently. I have this thing I say all the time: let's live every day like it's 9/12. So I mean, that heroism, that togetherness I saw is what I like to remember.
In the years after the attacks of September 11, 2001, our nation erected monuments and memorials to honor the memories of the heroes and victims of that terrible day. Here at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center's headquarters at Glencoe, Georgia, we too have a memorial to honor and never forget. Incorporated into FLETC's memorial is a piece of the World Trade Center towers. This I-beam was cut from the twisted remains of the Twin Towers, and it represents our history of 9/11, while the monument itself represents our future and serves as a constant reminder to never forget. The beam, which is the centerpiece, is shielded by white marble stands, 9 on the left side of the beam and 11 on the right side. Together, they mark the date 9/11. The base of the memorial is 110 inches wide, representing the 110 stories of the World Trade Center towers. The steps of the base begin with broken concrete and are refined in materials until they end at the top in polished granite. Each step is 17.5 inches wide in remembrance of Flight 175. And there are 3 9-inch risers etched with words starting at the bottom in memory of Flight 93. The bottom riser is inscribed with the word service, The middle riser has the word country, and the top riser has the word family. The riser surrounding the base is inscribed with the word courage, in respect for the courageous men and women who protect our nation every day. The events of 9/11 changed us as a nation forever. This monument represents our unyielding American spirit and resolve to never forget our past as we continue to move forward towards our greater future.
Okay. I know that was a little long of a video, but it's really informational. You got a lot out of that video. You heard from, three or four different people about their experience during 9/11. Reliving, really seeing some of the videos again, the pictures, looking at everything, it brings back a lot of memories. It brings back a lot of emotion too. And it's a lot to digest. So, like they said, it's something that we shouldn't forget as a nation. It's something that, we need to carry on. Something that I hope you guys, and even, myself, and I believe everyone in this room, is something we can give more education to. I know me personally, don't throw your snacks at me when I tell you this, because I know I'm going to get some upset people in here. I was only one when it happened. I was at daycare. So I don't know firsthand specifically everything that happened. I had to learn about it through school. I learned about it from my parents. I learned about it from other people who lived it firsthand. But I've heard from my parents' stories, where were they when the towers fell? How did they feel? What were the emotions that were going on with them? I've heard from other people. I've heard from veterans as well, too. How did they feel? What was going through their mind during that time?
I was vacationing in Ireland, and we were walking down the street, and somebody said something happened in New York. And when we went further, again we heard about something happened in New York. And then when we got to the hotel, I thought, I saw the picture. I said, oh my God, my niece works there. The people in the hotel were so wonderful. They wanted to help me to see if I could call my family. The parents of my niece lived in Spain. And I was afraid to call them because I didn't want to hear what might have happened to her. Her name was Ingeborg. Because I thought it would never happen to her. So they were looking for her. And so far they hadn't found anything. But apparently when they finally had the nerve to call my sister, her husband said to me, what did he say? Yes, that of course she was in the second tower, the south tower, and she was on the 90th floor. And of course they never did find her. And I had to live with this because I never did see her again. She was 42 years old, very bright, beautiful girl. And this was she on her wedding day. So that's what I could tell you.
Thank you for sharing.
My husband and I had taken my brother-in-law to Niagara Falls because he'd never been there. So we were there and we were in a gift shop. He wanted to get some souvenirs for his grandchildren. So my husband was waiting out in the car, and when we walked out, we didn't say a word because he had to drive us back to the hotel. And so when we got to the hotel, we sat him down. There was an outdoor cafe, got him a drink, and then told him what had happened. And we could see from a hotel what was going on. There was traffic jams everywhere. The bridges were just jammed. Nobody was going anywhere. And when we finally left the next day, we saw these lines and lines of trucks that they didn't trust that maybe somebody had something in the trucks that would destroy that also. So yeah, it was very moving. scary.
Thank you for sharing.
I was a volunteer patient representative at the Rockledge Hospital on that day. My role basically was to visit with people. And as I went into one of the rooms, they had the television on, and the first plane that crashed into the plane that crashed into the first tower had already happened. And of course, the question was, what was it? Just an accident is my first thought. But then we just went on with business as usual, and kind of keeping one eye on the tower because on the TV. But then, short time later, when I stopped into another room, they had the TV on also, and looking at it. So, needless to say, I took a look at it, and that's when the second tower was hit. And at that point, none of us were sure what the heck happened. Needless to say, when I got back home, we had the TV on all day, just trying to find out what the story was.
I was only 11 at the time, but I was very happy to see where I grew up was Eagle Rock, West Orange, New Jersey. And it was a high piece of terrain that overlooked the meadows adjacent to New York City. When you walked along the pathway that existed at the time, on a clear day you could see a wide area, including all the buildings, sometimes even the boats going in and out, the liners. But to get to the point, I had occasion to, I wanted to make sure I saw it. All that walk area along the Eagle Rock, overlooking the meadows into New York City, had been converted to a very nice memorial, which I was very happy about. I didn't know any of the people though, but it gave me a good feeling.
Well, thank you for sharing. Has anybody been to the 9/11 memorial in New York? And I don't know if you remember that part of the video. There was a gentleman, he said, live every day like it's 9/12. Because on 9/12, the day after, everybody came together. Didn't matter what you looked like, who you liked, what you did, none of that. None of it mattered. We were all Americans, we were all together, we were all united. So if there's one thing we take away from that, I'd like that to be it. And if anyone else would like to share real quick, if not, we'll kind of close out.
I was going on a cruise 6 weeks later, and we were sailing out of New York. But of course, they weren't letting any ships go through the port. So we were bused to Baltimore. But we stayed right near Times Square, and we stayed in the same hotel that many of the rescue workers were, where the Red Cross workers were. And then we had the good fortune, the blessing, to go to St. Patrick's Cathedral. And there were pictures of all the firemen and the policemen and the rescue workers. And it was just so moving. We couldn't, I mean, it's something you just can't absorb, that somebody would be that horrible to their fellow man that they could do something like that. So we do need a wake-up call, all of us, even at our age.